guys, this is Lovin Meets with Dr. Saliha Afridi, founder of Lighthouse Arabia.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm really excited to have this conversation, such an important conversation to be had. I'm happy to be here to speak about all types of bullying, verbal bullying, physical bullying, emotional, relational, cyberbullying. I know this conversation was really instigated by a result of what happened recently in the news. And I think it's really important for parents to know what they can do for their children who are being bullied, but also for the parents whose child may be the bully.
And so if you have not subscribed to the Lovin Meets podcast, subscribe wherever you get your podcast from and enjoy.
Welcome back to the Lovin Dubai show. This week we saw a bullying incident in the UAE that led to a child being hospitalized. Today we're focusing on bullying among kids, and we're delighted to have Dr. Saliha Afridi back in studio to share her insights on how parents can support their children and how society, including the media, plays a role in shaping behaviors. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Such an important topic, especially right now.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being here. First of all, I for sure know that you have heard of the story. So what are your thoughts on the incident that had happened?
For me, this is a story about bullying, yes, but it is also a story about the responsibility media has, the responsibility parents have. It's just too easy for us to say, oh, this is a child being bullied by children. But this was a reality TV show where producers were provoking and evoking certain comments about the girl. So I think the onus is on the media company as well as the parents who actually really then furthered this kind of bullying. And so the editors could have cut it out, the producers could have stopped it, the parents could have stopped it. The children are very young children. I think they're 10, 11 years old. So they're young children. And by far, I believe that children that young do have empathy and they do know right from wrong. They can get a sense when they're hurting someone's feelings, but they also don't have a fully formed frontal lobe and decision making and their ability to be impulsive or not. That is not fully formed until they're in their 20s. So these are very young kids who are just learning about what is right, what is wrong, what is kind, what is not. And so the adults around them had a lot of responsibility. And I think, I really think that they went wrong here.
Really interesting in terms of where is the responsibility when there is a bullying incident. And you say that the kids are at that age where they're nearly recognizing rights from wrong. So although we can say that the onus might be on the parents and on the producers, if a child is in a situation, so maybe parents listening now and their child is in a bullying situation, whether it's in a TV show or in a school,
yes.
What can the child do if their friend is being bullied, if they think bullying is happening? What do they do in that situation?
For sure, there is a lot of power in the bystander. Bullies get their power from people who remain silent while they are inflicting the aggression. And one thing we have to know that bullying is sometimes someone is teasing someone or someone is doing something that is not nice. That is not bullying. Bullying is when it's repeated, when it's intentional, and when there is a power differential, clear power differential between the two. So repeated, is this happening again and again and again, or was I just having an off day and said something mean to someone? Mm-hmm. Is it intentional? Did I have the intention to hurt? Was there malintent? And sometimes you realize, oh my gosh, I didn't even know I said something. I'm so sorry. And so you see an immediate reaction in the person where they feel like they hurt someone. So is it repeated? Is it intentional? And there's a power differential, whether it's physical power or social power. And so we need to first make sure that we're not just qualifying everyone who does something hurtful or mean once or twice as bullies. Bullies are a different kind of people, and there is a lot of trauma that can be inflicted if those bullies are not stopped. So yes, every person within that system holds a responsibility. I don't absolve children of responsibility. I don't absolve the parents, and I don't think the system for sure. So if you are within a school, I think all the parties should be educated, whether it's anti-bullying campaign or pro-kindness campaign, both of these, the research shows, both of these need to be implemented within a school system in order for this to be effective. So I can tell my child, hey, if you ever see someone being mean, you stop and say something, because that actually disempowers the bully. But then they are also now a target for the bully. If the parents and the system and the school doesn't get involved, then you actually are really putting the child in a very difficult situation.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of bullying, it's like an umbrella, and people maybe will not really quite understand sometimes bullying. So what are the different kinds of bullying, and how can like parents and teachers recognize that this is bullying?
Yeah. So like I said, the three things that are necessary for it to qualify as bullying: the repeated nature, the intention to harm, and the power differential. That needs to be there. But there are four main types of bullying. But the list can go on, but we can put them in these four categories. Physical bullying, which there's aggression, hitting, tripping, pinching, that kind of stuff that can happen. There is relational bullying, where you're using social power to actually exclude people or whisper and talk behind. So really making that person feel quite marginalized, hurt, and excluded, shamed, humiliated. That relational power is going to be there. There's also verbal bullying, calling people names and demeaning them, humiliating them in front of people. And then there is cyberbullying, this would qualify, this incident that happened recently would qualify as a cyberbullying incident, where something is on a device and through the aid of technology can reach the masses. So the most harmful can be oftentimes cyberbullying, because there is such a loss of control. The whole world with one click of a button can know everything. And I think that's why this was so traumatic for the young girl who went through this, is because the whole school knew about it, the whole community knew about it, people were talking about it, and you just get crushed under all of those comments. And with social media, there's this anonymity. You don't feel the other person, and our empathy is not triggered. So it's much easier for me to say something mean to you online than it is for me to say it to you in person. So that anonymity, the dehumanization that happens online, that actually can be so painful and traumatic for people that experience cyberbullying. All types of bullying is painful. Typically, girls engage in relational bullying, boys engage in physical bullying, and then usually verbal bullying is across the board similar in both boys and girls.
Interesting. As we speak, I just think back to childhood and the types of bullying that I definitely would have seen, and we'll certainly touch back on cyberbullying because it's not something we grew up with, but I know it's an issue that parents would have a lot of questions on. But just to look at the effects that bullying can have on kids, what are we talking about? I guess short-term and long-term would be the psychological effects, and how are kids coping?
So I did use the word trauma, and this is a trauma for many people. There are so many people in my clinical practice that I've seen that are adults that are still so deeply wounded by the effects of childhood bullying. So this is not something to take lightly. There are people who can't they really get crushed under the weight of the bullying, and they take their own life, and and that is a painful reality of the outcomes of bullying. So those are the two extreme. And when I say trauma, I like to use the definition of Gabor Mate, which is that trauma is not what happens to you. It's what happens inside of you as a result of what happens to you. So it's about the capacity. Now, this is a young child. They don't have the capacity, they don't have the ability to actually process all of the stuff, to make sense of that this isn't about me. There are actually mean people, and it's not that I'm a bad person or there's something wrong with me. So they actually don't. And so that's why it's so much more painful in childhood, because they don't have the ability to process. We have movie ratings because that child cannot differentiate between reality and what is, created as entertainment. And so this for her feels very, very real. And any type of bullying can have far greater implications when happening in childhood than adulthood. But adulthood bullying, workplace bullying, all this is still happening. And I see so much relational bullying happening even within adults. She didn't get invited to that party. I'm going to exclude her. I'm going to post this picture. That stuff is still going on in adulthood. So trauma is a real effect. So obviously the symptoms would be depression, anxiety, psychosomatic pain, social anxiety, humiliation, and this is not just short term but long term. But I do like to say to parents who have had a child who is bullied that this doesn't have to be something that stays with them for the rest of their life. If we create a safe space, if we help them process this pain, people can definitely heal trauma, whether it's childhood trauma, adult trauma, any type of trauma. There is therapies for that. And so if your child is showing clinically significant symptoms and you're like, this child is really not well, which to my understanding, the child that went through what happened recently is really not well, I would really encourage them to seek therapy for help her to process, to name, to integrate that experience in a way that she can walk out of this empowered and say that I know who I am and I know what I went through, but it doesn't define me. And I will use what happened to me to speak out against bullying. I mean, there's ways that this narrative can totally shift, and I've seen that too.
That's positive.
Yes.
Well, and when a child gets bullied, should the parent intervene as soon as possible? Because then they might seem like the child is too dependent on their parents, and then like other kids will be like, oh yeah, she got her mom or her dad, or
yeah. So this is where it gets very tricky. This is why the whole system has to be involved, because there's always a risk with children who don't want to speak up, because they don't want that retaliation. Oh, you're just a mommy's boy or a mommy's girl, or oh look, your mommy had to come fight your fight for you, or your daddy had to do this work. That stuff is real, and so many children are silent. And so many adults are silent in the same way with workplace bullying, right? Like, because they are afraid of retaliation against what could happen if I do speak up, which is why, for sure, 100%, I think that parent needs to be involved. 100%, I feel that whatever community they're a part of, whether it's a school, whether it's a workplace, now in this situation, it was the media, they need to be involved in stopping this from happening. And that's why I'm so upset and disappointed that they didn't stop that. They could have stopped it from not putting it out there for her to see and for the world to see, right? And so that's where a lot of this we all need to be involved in stopping this. So 100%, if a child is watching this, I would tell the child, talk to a safe person. If a parent is watching this, do not get inflamed. Do not get on the phone and start. Create a calm environment, speak calmly, get the details, document the facts, think through, hold space. First, just you being there for the child is going to be so important. And then typically what is happening is that they're part of a community, which is where the bullying happens. I would say talk to the administration of that community and have that stop within that. So the parents do have to get involved, and they have to find a way to make sure that that child is not retaliated against. And I've seen many different forms of that, where the child was actually, in this case, the child was given permission to do distance learning for a while. I've seen children removed from one classroom to the other, just to say that, okay, we're gonna protect you. Our number one goal right now as a whole system is to protect this vulnerable child, and and our whole policy and our rules need to be in support of that.
Can we speak a little bit more on the silence and how to create a safe space? Because I think one of the key things is that kids won't speak up. So if you're a parent and you're watching and you know your child is going through something, but they've just shut that door, and they shut the door every day, how can you create a safe space? How are there effective ways and tips to get a child to speak about what they're going through?
I usually say that if a child is not speaking up, then they are not feeling safe. So what can we do to create a sense of safety? And usually parental reactions are the things that kids are afraid of. Like, oh, they're going to say it was my fault. Or they're going to say, that, oh, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. Come on, you're tougher than this. So it's dismissive, it's minimizing, or it's inflamed. Those are usually the three reactions parents show up with. So this is what I mean by you have to create a safe space for the child. And if you don't have that space generally, it's not going to happen now. So what I would say, the number one priority for any parent anywhere, not just kids that are bullied, is how is the relationship between you and your child? Because that will be the foundation for every other thing that shows up. So really invest in creating that safety and managing your own anxiety, managing your own instincts. Because my instinct would be, like, who's doing what to my kid? Like, sure. It's nature to protect our young, right? This is where you have to rein that in as a parent and say, I am the regulator. This child doesn't have a fully formed nervous system that can regulate itself. They feel unsafe in this world. It is my job to create safety for their nervous system. I must remain calm. I must remain containing. I must remain safe. I must remain reasonable. I must remain in a way that allows this child to feel empowered in the situation. Tell me, child, what would you like us to do? So let's just plan this out. We don't have to do anything. Let's just document this for now. And then let's figure out a plan on how we're going to go about this. But I promise you, you will be safe and nothing will happen to you. So this kind of reassurance is needed. But it's so hard for me to answer that question because a lot of that actually depends on the parents' own reaction. And so this is where I say parenting is an inside job. Like, you've got to first work on yourself, your own anxiety, your own wounds, because a lot of times parents were bullied and now that stuff starts to play out, right? So you have to go do that bit. And then you're going to be able to show up for the child in the way they need you to show up for them rather than in the way you think is right.
How can we teach children how to stand up for themselves and in a very constructive way, so that it does not, get back to them?
So I feel very strongly that this needs to be part of the curriculum in every education system. I feel strongly that social emotional learning, assertiveness, drawing boundaries, standing up for yourself needs to be part of every curriculum. And not in an aggressive way, but how can you just show up, right? Because no one really teaches assertiveness skills, right? So we then resort to either being passive, where we take it, or we be aggressive, or we be passive aggressive. No, assertiveness really doesn't fall within that realm of teaching. And so I really think it needs to be part of the curriculum and not something I have to take my child after school and now go teach a coach who will teach self-defense and who will teach standing up for yourself, or me as a mother has to do only that work. I think it's a responsibility of our school systems to do that work too. However, as parents, there are many programs you can look at online. There are websites absolutely dedicated to this that teach people digital citizenship and what is good. What does that look like? What should you share? What should you not? All of that stuff the thinking has been done. We just have to actually have that conversation. And I would say have it preemptively. Don't wait for the bullying to happen. Teach your kid kindness. Teach your kid empathy. Teach your kid to stand up for themselves. Like my daughter, she's in karate. And karate we don't attack. It's only used for self-defense. And before you punch, you first actually have to protect yourself. You don't actually aggress. So there's so much theory about the way you live your life in karate, which I think is a great empowering way. So this is for me one of the ways that you can teach your children how to stand up for yourself and to stand in their power. And that you don't have to be an aggressor. And there's a difference between power and force. you stand in your power and you won't have to use your force, and you will be able to withstand any force.
You should just go to every school and have this conversation.
I would love to.
I feel like it's just something that kids need to hear. And one of the common things we speak about is victims of bullying. But what about if your child is the bully? And why do kids bully? Is it fair to blame the parents? Does it come from the parents, or are there other underlying factors?
What we have seen is that bullying is a learned behavior, so they're seeing it somewhere. And typically, bullies themselves are either have issues of insecurity or grandiosity. Like they think of themselves as actually being quite powerful, but internally they might actually be quite insecure. They might actually be seeing aggression in the household. They might be seeing the dynamic between the parent and the child might be one where, as I said, there is a power differential at play. So maybe the way the parent is dealing with the child is that they use their power to get them to, or they use their force, I should say. They use their force to get the child to do, and they use their aggression to get the child to do. So they realize that, this works. It works with my parent to me. Now I'm going to do it with someone who has less power than me. So it does really play out in this kind of authoritarian parenting where physical or verbal aggression is present. You will see that that child will also use those antics in their world. So power imbalances is going to be very important. So parenting is an important element. What they see on social media is really like, we think that parents are the be it and end all, but it's not the only thing that is raising our children is the parents. The school system is raising. So if the child sees that the teacher is not intervening, okay, you're giving me permission to act this way. So if the school doesn't have very clear rules and policies around bullying, then you have a little bit more room to have some of that happen. And then I would say social media. What are our children watching? Who is raising your kids? What are the role models? Some of these pranksters, right, that they are on YouTube, I'm not familiar with all their names, but they're really mean. They're mean and they're making money off of it, right? What you see on reality TV, they're like appealing to our base instincts of power and dominance and humiliation and taking pleasure in people's struggles. Like this is what we're seeing works. So this is what is informing our conditioning of how am I going to be in this world, which is why I think that pro-kindness and pro-empathy programs need to go alongside the anti-bullying and anti-aggression kind of programs that we have in schools and the conversations we need to have in our families.
Well, speaking of bullies, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like bullies are victims of their own selves in a way. So how can we help children who bully change their behavior?
Yes. So if they are a child and they're bullying, so there's definitely something wounded in them. I agree with this. I do take a very trauma-informed lens to bullying and to any type of aggression that kids might be enacting, that there's something in them that is hurt. And instead of saying, what are you doing? The question would be, what happened to you? And this kind of trauma-informed lens in therapy would really help the child then access the part of them that actually is kind, that actually is empathetic. We all are, by the way. We all are born with the ability to empathize. We all have mirror neurons. Your pain is my pain. And if I'm not feeling that pain, then there are some walls between us. What built those walls? What pain was that? So addressing that in therapy, but taking that very seriously, because childhood bullies become adult bullies. Like it doesn't just go away over time. So really, as a parent, I would say, I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of shame that is triggered and a lot of self-blame that is triggered, but intervene early. There is a way that they can actually access their humanity and their empathy. So I would say take this to a professional and treat it professionally.
We're coming towards the end of our show, but I do want to get one quick question in there about cyberbullying. mainly more for parents in terms of how to monitor and how to engage their children's online activity without invading their privacy. Is there a way for parents to kind of guide their kids and just to make sure that, you know, everything that they're doing online is safe and they're not putting themselves in harm's way?
Well, first of all, you're about to give them, you know, what I could be like a potential, like a weapon of mass destruction, truly internal destruction, even external destruction, if you just hand it to them and be like, oh, here, happy birthday for your 10th birthday, I got you a phone. Because you would never let them just roam around outside in the world, right? You are so protective when they go to the park or when who they get picked up from and who they're talking to and why did you talk to that stranger. But we just hand them the phone and actually don't even have a conversation. There are great contracts online. There are great programs about digital citizenship and about learning about how to be online. What do you what do you share? What do you not share? Who do you talk to? Who do you not talk to? There's so much that needs to happen. And those who know me know that I'm pretty hard-lined on not letting my children be on social media. Like, I'm going to delay that as soon as, until, you know, I can. My 18-year-old just literally went on social media.
Wow, that is a hard line.
As she went on to college. And so for me, it was really educating my children a lot about the dangers of social media, the addictive capabilities of social media, but all the other stuff that's happening on there, the bullying that's happening on there. And so for me, it needs to be a full, like, semester-long course about what will you encounter, how will you do this, what will you post, what does that say about you, what is going to be your brand online, what is going to be your position about certain things, what will you encounter, what types of images that will you see, how will you process that, how will you know it's too much. I can go on and on, right? And so don't just hand them the phone and be like, here, off you go. And because Facebook says 13 is the age, no way would I give my child social media at 13. No way. When I know that 50% of all mental health issues arise at the age of 14, and they're going under massive changes, puberty and relationally and neurologically, why would I add this stressor to their life? So no way. And so I think as parents, we need to be empowered. And as far as privacy goes, No, they're too young to have privacy. Just like I wouldn't, oh, Mom, please don't ask me where I'm going out tonight as the 10-year-old walks out of the house. No, I need to know who you're going with, when you're going, who's going to be there. We would do that. And it wouldn't be seen as, oh, this is their privacy. Why is all of a sudden I need to protect their online privacy? Until they're old enough to go make their own decisions, there is no privacy. I'm going to be there. I'm going to have passwords. I need to know who you're engaging with. And I still know that even when I have all of that, that they will still do things and encounter things that I cannot control. This is where the education needs to be. And that's why it needs to be a really thought through process, a long conversation, drawn out conversation, again and again conversation about cyberbullying and the pain and all the other things that you can encounter online. So something I feel very, very strongly about, something I feel like we don't talk enough about, especially in this part of the world. Like, it just feels like everybody has a phone and so I should have one too. No.
Dr. Saliha Afridi, insightful as always. Schools, parents, media, we have conversations to happen. Yes. It has to happen going forward. But thank you so much for your insights on the topic.
Thank you.
Thank you, Farah.
Thank you, Casey.
And that brings us to the end of our show. Thank you so much for being here. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning, same time, same place.